Show you how to do research on American history at the University of Ghent, even though we don't have access to America History and Life, which is the indexing service provided by EBSCO. Now, it is so expensive that EBSCO doesn't even offer free trials to individuals. If you go to the free trial section, you'll see that they don't offer free trial access to students or individuals not representing a college or a corporation or some other institution. Because it's so expensive, they know that in the end, you're not going to be able to afford an account. But there is a way to use EBSCO's their greed against them. For example, because they're trying to sell this service, they do let potential buyers know what they carry. So you can get their coverage list by PDF, Excel, or HTML. The easiest, obviously, is PDF. You get the PDF, it'll open in a new window like this, and you can look and see what they cover. However, you cannot search by title. It doesn't work. For that, you have to download the PDF onto your desktop. You know, open it up, and then you can search. Say, for example, I want information on a journal about Iowa. And there's a chance that if I type Iowa in, I'll see that the Annals of Iowa is carried by History and Life. I can also see, by looking at the coverage policy, which journals are specifically about America and which ones sometimes have information about America. For example, American periodicals is listed as priority. That means that it's all about America. Whereas American Preservation is a magazine, it's selective. Sometimes it has things that they're interested in, sometimes it doesn't. Annals of Science, also selective. Sometimes there's information about science in America, and sometimes it's information about science elsewhere. I can also see which journals are peer-reviewed and which ones are not. Helpful if I'm going to use this list to find these journals. I want to know, is it something useful or something where the information has to be handled very, very carefully. Now, the Annals of Iowa has its own website. It's published by the State Historical Society of Iowa. It is peer-reviewed. And I can see the table of contents for these issues. Now, that's not all the issues. A lot of journals are beginning to put their tables of contents, and sometimes even the content itself, online. But it takes time. And so they usually start with what's most recent and then work their way back. And the other particular problem with this journal is that you can't search the table of contents. This little search engine here actually searches the entirety of the state of Iowa's government website. So say I want information about Joseph McCarthy. He's a very famous, infamous U.S. senator who became known for his obsession with finding communists in the U.S. government during the 1950s. So if I click here and I type in Joseph McCarthy and I hit search, what comes back may not necessarily be things related to the journal. Say things from the digital library at the University of Iowa, articles listed in the Daily Iowan Historic Newspaper database, which can be an interesting primary source, but it's not what I'm looking for at the moment. So this is a very problematic way to find information. It's not to say that it can't be done, but it's much more time consuming. I could also, although if I was looking for information that was just about Iowa, this would be where I would go. What I can also do is go to another indexing site. For example, and this is what I would advise, there is also the American Historical Association's directory of history journals. This is the browse, and there's also search. I prefer browse because the search is actually not really good. If you type in one of these codes, which are organized by subject, because this stocks lists history journals that deal with all kinds of subjects, not just American history. A lot of them are about American history, but not all of them. If you type in this code, very often you won't get anything back. And if you don't know the title of the thing that you're looking for, then there's no point in typing in keyword search, really. So go to browse, look through the list, see if there's something that takes your fancy. Because the advantage of this website is that they give you a link to the website of the journal. And with the website of the journal, like the American Historical Review, you can look at the issues and at their table of contents. But you won't usually have access to content. Getting access to content is more difficult. Now, the American Historical Review happens to be stocked by JSTOR. The problem is, though, that you cannot assume that a journal that is listed either at History and Life or at some other external collection, such as AHA's History Journals database, is going to be carried on JSTOR, because JSTOR actually only covers 300 history journals, which is a tiny fraction of what's out there. But you can find what's there by browsing by title, so you can see if they carry the journal or not. Or you could just run your subject search and see what's there. Searching on JSTOR via specific and looking at the issue, going issue by issue to find things, is pointless, because you can search by keyword and other criteria. So that's really not the most efficient way to use JSTOR. I'm just showing this to you so that you can see that just because we don't have access to history and life doesn't mean that you don't have access to that journal. You do. If you are logged in through the University of Ghent, either via a university computer or using your VPN. I'm not logged in, so while I can see what's in there, I can't actually get my hands on it. Other journals, diplomatic history, for example, which was mentioned in the AHA directory of history journals, has its own website, and it's on Wiley. And Wiley is an alternative search engine. It's a very useful one too, because diplomatic history is on here. And that means I can search in this issue, or I can search in the entire journal. And unless you already have an idea of where the article is at, which issue it's in, it's better to search in the journal, or you can search all content. Now, I just want to search in this journal. So I'm going to hit in this journal, and I'm going to type Joseph McCarthy. Hit enter, and voila, 39 results for Joseph McCarthy in diplomatic history. Another alternative is to use Google Scholar. Now, Google Scholar will deliver you slightly better results than, for example, just going to Google Books. Google Scholar will bring up books, but it will also bring up journal publications. The problem is that it requires a little finessing to use. For example, if I type in Joseph McCarthy, I will get things written by a man named Joseph McCarthy, and not necessarily about Joseph McCarthy. You have to be more specific. So I will add senator to the tag, and then I get things about America's most hated senator. I'll show you in another web tutorial how to make better use of Google Scholar and the types of things that you can that you need to avoid and how to avoid them. But this is just a bunch of ways to show you that, you know, just because we don't have access to this one database doesn't mean that it's impossible to do research on American history. It's perfectly possible. It just means you have to do a little more work.